Okay, here we go.
This is Auto Collabs.
Here's the thing. We always love being together because it starts with laughs, ends with laughs. And, Jeff Gonzales is one of those guys that is always up for a good laugh. I remember a story that I think Michael may not know actually happened, but Paul and I were both there. One of Jeff's employees, Andrew, decided after winning the Innovation Cup at DSES to bring that cup to our our event party at the end of the digital dealer night, the first night of digital dealer last year. And he didn't just bring it. It wasn't just like tucked under his arm, celebrating it, lifting it over. No, they went to Bye Bye Baby and bought a baby carrier, and he brought the cup in a baby carrier to the event. So Jeff Gonzales
and they sourced that baby carrier in Las Vegas, by the way.
Wow.
Which is maybe the bigger feat, but they did ask permission. Be like, hey, would it be okay if we did this? I'm like, what kind of events we put on, right? Like, if you could do that and totally redeem yourself, right? Like, and he did, and they crushed it. Oh,
was the carrier more expensive than the cup itself?
Probably.
those things probably.
Look, those things are worth their weight in gold.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that
right now.
Yeah, that's
breathe
fair.
in the back so you don't get, I don't know. Well, whatever the fact is, we hope you enjoy this interview with Jeff Gonzales from AET.
We've got my friend Jeff Gonzales, the guy that always seems to have the most creative ways to put videos together of their office using their actual technology that nobody would ever expect out of a technology company. Jeff, thanks for coming on the podcast with us, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Dude, so one time, and we'll get into the rest of the thing, but I have to go to this. One time, you guys did this like competition between employees that were using your technology to place ads. And I thought it was one of the most creative ways to explain what your platform could do. And even to like, there was this element was like, oh, they actually know how to use their stuff. Where did that come from? Like, how did the brains in the office go, this is a thing we should do to show how our technology works?
Yeah, so it all started with a pie in the face. So Betsy and I, we have this competition where we always kind of like compete with each other a little bit, and the loser for some reason always gets a pie in the face, and it's not like a good pie. It's just like whipped cream on a plate, right? And so we were thinking about how we could do some content, but kind of show off some of our tools and how quickly they can be used by anybody that's kind of familiar with them. So we were like, hey, let's just have a matchup and see who can build out the most creative when it comes to like vehicle offers or videos or whatever, utilizing the AET platform. And we put like 5 minutes on the clock, I think it was, or 7 minutes, something like that. And whoever made the most unique creative, and then it was judged by a dealer, the loser got hit in the face with a pie. So Betsy got nailed in the face that time. I won that one. And she's the one who brought it up, thinking that she was going to crush me on it. Because she deals with
you never bring that up if you think you're going to lose.
Oh, totally.
You know what I mean?
She deals with our platform the most in the operation side, so she's most familiar with it. But she doesn't realize that, like at home, I'm building stuff all the time. So
I love it. So take us back now. Let's zoom out a little bit and we'll get back to kind of the AET platform, because I think it'd be good to talk about that, just because I don't think it's something that a ton of people know about, and our audience might not even know. And but I want to zoom back just a little bit on your history in the retail automobile business, because you're not just a tech guy. You actually came in through the retail side of the business. Is that right?
Yeah, totally. So and I'll clear it up. I'm not a tech guy by any means. Like, my team gets frustrated with me at times because I'm messing up little pieces of code on the back end that I'm just trying to learn. But so my background came, I started at Stevenson Automotive here in Denver, Colorado. It's a 7 rooftop, 8 brand, I think, group as the digital marketing manager for the entire group. And at the time, we were really doing heavy social, and it wasn't as big and as it is now, right? And we got noticed by somebody at Toyota, I believe. And then I got recruited over to CK Advertising, which was previously more in Scary Advertising. And if you're familiar with them, they're the guys that did like Haystack back in the day. Anyways, I took over their social product and helped them kind of rebrand it and rebuild it to Ember Social. And eventually we got up to about 400 dealerships that we were managing. I built up a team within. Betsy was part of that, our COO here at the company at AET. And that company was eventually sold, right? So it gave us the opportunity to come to AET. So there's your springboard into AET now, Kyle.
Yeah. So did you, like, was Stevenson your first marketing gig, or were you kind of in the marketing ecosystem before that? Or did you kind of, some of the marketing people, it's like, I started as a salesperson, that didn't work, so I went to marketing. How did that kind of come into play?
Automotive was actually totally random that I got into it. I started doing digital marketing up in Breckenridge, Colorado. I lived out there as I'd call it a ski bum, right? But really I had a great job as a marketing director for a small hotel group up in the mountains. And it's where I got my first taste of social media marketing, because we used to do last minute deals down to Denver for trying to fill our hotel space. And that was my first real taste of it. And then I went to a company in Denver where we started doing social advertising. And this was back in the day of Power Editor. If you're familiar with Facebook and you've been using Facebook ads for a long time, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it was the clunkier first version of Ads Manager on the Facebook side, but it gave us my first taste into kind of that digital social advertising area. And we ended up getting a car dealership group, and it was kind of fun advertising there. And the company that we were with was kind of it was going nowhere fast, right? And so I interviewed for this position in auto and got it. And I remember sitting in the car one day before I accepted the position of man, do I really want to go into auto, or do I want to stay within the agency world? This is kind of a big game changer potentially. And I ended up going with it, and it's been fantastic ever since.
Actually, let me ask a question about that there. When you were saying I don't know if I want to go into auto, do you remember what those feelings and hesitancies were?
Yeah, it just, in my mind, it seemed like an industry that's always forward thinking on the products that they produce. But I remember talking to the group that I was interviewing with, Stevenson, and at the time I was like, man, these guys are so behind. Are they going to really accept my thoughts and how we can do digital instead of everything traditional at the time? So I was like, am I going to just go in here and everybody's going to push back against me?
And what year was that? What year was that?
Oh man, that was probably 2015, 2014, something like that. Okay. So it was quite a while back, and I could be totally off on that. If I had my LinkedIn profile, I could tell you exactly.
It's that's where I store all this.
Source of truth, right? So, and the reason I'm asking these questions is because Kyle and I talk a lot about needing to get outside automotive professionals to come and contribute their insights and innovation and experience to automotive from outside world. And there's this thought, and I think you're validating it. If I go into automotive with all of this experience, is that the end of the road for my growth and development and innovation? Because everyone's constantly going to say no, this is how you have to do it in automotive,
Yeah, precisely, man. I think you hit the nail right on the head. And as you're bringing all of this up, I'm kind of getting these thoughts, coming back to me of what was my innovation going to stop there? Am I going to be handcuffed to the way that the dealership life wanted to do it? Was I going to be making, I don't know, magazine spots or images for,
this is how we do it. We
get
in front of a camera, we yell at everybody, we put it in front of cars, and then they're going to buy.
Yeah, put some wacky waving inflatable arm tube men and some giant, gorillas.
Take your power manager and put it where the sun don't shine.
Yeah, and it ended up turning the right way for me, and they listened, and it eventually got the attention of others, right? So I was totally wrong. There were some parts that I really had to push on. But I think, after, there's so much amount of pressure, they were just like, okay, fine, just go ahead and try it. And if it works, you look like the good guy here. So In auto, I think, it's an industry that's always like a step behind from, in my opinion, of like the advertising stuff, but it's catching up really quickly.
You mean like the rest of the retail advertising world?
Yeah, totally. And it's really all the compliances behind it, and dealers, they're limited budgets. They have limited inventory now. It's harder now to get them to try like TikTok per se than, it was back in the day of doing Facebook. And I joke about this all the time.
I'm going to push back on one thing that you said.
Sure.
They have limited budgets.
That's true.
That is a self-created limitation, because we all know that there are not significant budget constraints right now. It's just a decision to not allocate it.
I think that's what it is. And I think it's more on like our industry struggles with like research and development kind of dollars. We're not, especially at the tier 3 level. There's no like, hey, we're just going to try this knowing that it could totally fail and not faulting someone for the fact that it failed. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and not just that, but that we're like, okay, let's do TikTok ads. It's probably going to blow us up. And 30 days later, we're like, nothing happened.
Yeah, probably like 15 days later, 7 days later, after the first 2 posts, right?
Nobody's clicked
You're
on
getting
it.
phone calls.
I didn't sell me any cars. Come on, guys. It's funny. I was telling Ryan over at TikTok not too long ago, I feel like I'm having some of the same conversations I did back when I was trying to push Facebook, right? Because dealers are like, nobody's on Facebook. It's all these, young kids. And it's like, come on, buddy. That's a brand new buying demographic. Go after it. Get out there. If it fails, like at least you tried it. You got some information behind it, but don't just say no. Like give it a whirl. And I promise you, give it 3-4 months, something like that, and it will start to show it will start to show its face. But it's funny, like it's the same conversation, different platform.
So you've actually watched that transition. I think that's really relevant knowledge, because now it's like we see how fast that, that young buying demographic becomes the primary buying demographic, right?
Totally.
Like it feels like just like that, it just happened. And then that young platform is the one where is the most technologically sophisticated, where you can serve up the best ads and you kind of built the brand loyalty. So I think like this message is very, very timely for where the industry is right now, because like it just happened, right? It just happened. The last 10 years happened like that. And now Facebook is, for the grandmas and grandpas.
Hey, I
It really
love
is.
my Instagram.
I was actually we were talking about a couple weeks ago how TikTok is now like the second leading source for search volume behind YouTube and videos. That's where people are going to find out information about purchasing or doing new things or whatever it may be. So, when you think about a social platform giving access to research, which is what a lot of shopping behavior is research. Like TikTok is actually growing faster
Very
in that
fast.
perspective than even Facebook or a Snapchat or an Instagram that is much more delineated for actual social platform. But TikTok is recognizing the searchability. And so I guess, are you seeing that? Because I know your platform is kind of experimenting and working in with, inventory stuff on TikTok, but are you seeing people experimenting with this like transactional advertising and as well as like the fun side of TikTok, and then leaning into also the research orientation of TikTok? Is that something that people are experimenting with both inside and outside of your platform, knowing kind of the social media game like you do?
I can say on a personal level, I do. I fit that mold perfectly, right? But in automotive, it's hard to say just yet, right? We've really only been on TikTok's platform for about 4 months now, and having folks utilizing it, and we're seeing a mix of use cases in it with organic and paid ads. I can't really speak on the research side other than, it's me going on there and looking. Like I just bought a electric specialized bike, so I started following all of these, all of these companies on there to get the information about them. I haven't heard that a lot in the automotive space, but I can guarantee you, like, just like Facebook, it's coming down the road. It's catching up to itself right now.
I mean, I can imagine EVs just being a massive, massive
Yeah.
search opportunity on TikTok.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Well, there's a product thing for you guys. Got to figure out how to get all that research in there for it. So I think AET as a company obviously solves a problem. I'm guessing you maybe in your agency or dealership experience some of the things that you're now trying to solve for others. So what's that kind of like core solve that you're looking to bring to the industry, or you have brought to the industry in what probably came out of experience, since you are so experienced in the social media advertising ecosystem?
Yeah, totally. So I remember the aha moment when we were doing this, but the core idea behind AET was to empower the dealer. And there's a lot of great tools that are available, but we never saw creative tools that empowered a dealer with everything that they needed for automotive, because automotive advertising isn't easy. There's compliances, there's, jelly beans, the vehicle images, right, that have to be perfect. There has to be, the disclaimers, and you got to have font packages. And, if you're a designer, you know how to do all that stuff in Canva or Figma or Adobe products, any of these tools that are out there, but you have to have a certain background. So I remember the aha moment when I was at CK Advertising, and, we're talking to this dealer, and they're basically telling us how to run their ads at the time, right? Of like, hey, this is what we want. This is what we want the creative to look like. This is what we wanted to say. And I'm sitting there like, why don't you just do this yourself, man?
Right.
And it was like, well, if we had, what do you need me for? Like, you're paying us, top dollar for all of this. And, you're just having somebody else do it. Like, if only there was a tool available that empowered you to create and then deploy this. Well, hey, boom, here we are today. So AET's platform, the core side of it is on the creative part, right? So that's kind of like our staple product that we started with, that we wanted to give to dealers, that had everything from, brand creative at a whole embedded directly in the tool. So all of those elements that I just talked about, the vehicle images, the font packages, backgrounds, all the different sizes for Facebook advertising, mobile-based ads, banner advertising, all embedded in this creative tool that was so easy to use. And that was the key part of it, is I had to make this easy to use, because if it wasn't, then it's no different than any of those other products that were out there. But then once you had creative, it was like, all right, now what do I do with this, right? So then we started tapping into the APIs of like Facebook and all the other channels that we can deploy ads into, and built in all those strategies that we had been using already for years directly into the computers. Because all it is button pressing, right? On the back end, when you send a Facebook ad, setting up the optimizations, what you want it to do, and then attaching all the different pieces to it. Well, the computers can do all of that. So we tapped into all these different areas, built in the same optimizations that an agency would use, but let the computers handle it. And it allows a user with no experience in creative, no experience in ad deployment to social channels, to come into a tool, be able to get ads out there quickly, efficiently, typically about 5 to 7 days faster than an ad agency, just because there's no revisions. They're doing it the way they want to. Makes it pretty simple and seamless.
I love when products legit come out of a backstory where like all the pain can be so easily tracked. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And from you're like, from the outside agency perspective, from the outside automotive perspective, right? All of these little roadblocks, from the understanding of how dealers operate, from hearing the questions, and like just such a common sense deployment. I mean, that's why, like, when Canva came on the scene, and if you're not familiar with Canva, Canva, it's a web-based tool that allows you to create social posts and now video content and motion design and all these things. And they really like tried to bring it down to the lowest common denominator, right? They say, okay, how can the least qualified person possible still produce something that is ready for the show, right? And you layer in automotive, right? A big part of being ready for the show is, like you mentioned, all the compliance, and that outside agencies don't understand that about automotive, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen people come in, come in from outside, and they're like, oh yeah, this sucks. This is easy. And then you just like show them like, oh, by the way, it's got to keep up with all these things. Yeah, and then all of a sudden the attitude changes pretty quickly. And they're like,
and
okay.
And it's not just one size fits all, right? Every brand is a little bit different. And, the expectations for like a luxury brand over, more of a domestic brand is or your typical Chevys or whatever, a lot different, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so, having all of that knowledge, that back end knowledge, and building that directly into the software was key for making this stuff work.
So what's like, if you had kind of a dealer persona that is like a power user or a best case scenario for something like this, for a technology like this, who would you see? Obviously most people can say like, it's great for any dealer, but like, who are the personas? Who are the people that you're saying, hey, look, this is probably keyed in and dialed in for these types of dealer personas? Because I think that's important for a lot. It's like, hey, some people this might not be right for, but some people this is perfect for. Where is that kind of sitting for you all?
Yeah, absolutely. So you said it in that this tool isn't for everybody, right? It's built for everybody, but you have to be able to spend the time, right? And it's not a lot of time, but we have just about every type of user on our platform. We have large dealer groups with, teams utilizing it. We have mom and pop shops that have 1 to 2 rooftops across their brand with one marketing person in-house that's using it. I find that our sweet spot is around that, 3 to 5 rooftop group where it's like, hey, do we really want to go buy, spend a lot of money on an expensive agency? Or do we, want to build a team internally? Or do we have one person in-house that has the time to take over a tool that can do everything that we've discussed here? So when it comes down to the persona, like really it's across the board, but like I said, it's not for everybody, but we try to weed that out during our conversations of like, hey, is this tool for you? If not, like, you're happy, we're happy to sell it to you and you can try it out. And that's why we don't lock people into like long-term contracts or anything, because it's not for everybody. They might jump in and 90 days in, they're like, I love the tool. It's easy. I just don't have time for it. And we totally get it, right? But across the board, I think, the users of our tools love it. They find it powerful. And if you understand enough about your brand, you can use this tool on a monthly basis.
Yeah, without a doubt. Actually, I worked with someone that had never run a social media ad in their life, and we legit deployed a large AIA strategy in less than 9 minutes the first time they had ever touched the platform. It was it's pretty wild. Like, you can go from never having deployed on social to launching an inventory campaign in 9 minutes in the platform that is synchronous with the brand, has brand standards down for the OEM, and targets the right audience. So I know that it works, right? It doesn't work for everybody, but it does work. I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question, because you've got such an interesting background behind you, and I know that this is like, whoosh, we're just gonna whiplash everybody. If you're just listening, he's got like skateboards on if you're watching, you see my hats, right? I've got all these hats, but Jeff has like 90. No, I'm just kidding. I can see 5 skateboards and a helmet there. It sounds like, it looks like that's kind of a passion of yours, and there's some creativity focused on that. Like, how do you see your like hobbies playing into the way that you do and experience business life at this point, specifically maybe the hobby of skateboarding there?
Yeah, it's funny. So I'll tell you this: if it wasn't for skateboarding, I don't think I'd be here today. And I'll give you that timeline, because it has to do with skateboarding, but a little bit different. So I grew up skateboarding. I grew up listening to punk rock music. You probably see those posters, but I love music across the board. But I grew up skateboarding, and after college, I didn't want to go into the corporate life. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna move to Colorado and be a ski bum and go snowboard, because skateboarding was, I've done a lot of that already. And so I lived out in Colorado, or in Breckenridge, Colorado, for 5 years snowboarding. Like I kind of told you, I found a great job out there. But it brought me here, and it brought me to an area where like it wasn't the norm, right? Not everybody goes to the mountains of Colorado and spends 5 years of their life everybody's getting jobs and starting families, and I'm just sitting out there, drinking Coors Light beers and snowboarding and having the best time of my life. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. And it also allowed me to meet my wife and everything as well. But it brought me to the people that I now work with today. And brought a lot of inspiration into kind of creativity and trying to be, thinking differently, right? Because it's not the norm. But now, like, I'm trying to pass that on to my daughter, who's only 3, and I've got her skateboarding, and I got her first season pass this year to go snowboarding. We started pulling her around last year on it. So I'm trying to pass that down, and hopefully she gets it, and she loves skateboarding already. She loved snowboarding, but it's the action sports have always been a passion of mine, and I've I'm getting older, so it hurts a lot more when I fall. So I try not to fall anymore, but it's something that's been a big part of my life for a long time.
Oh man. Well, look, I think that the level of creativity and kind of that adventurous spirit really does come through in the work you're doing with the product, in the energy you're bringing to the industry. So really excited to hang out a little bit in person at a SotoCon. Man, keep us heading in that direction. I feel like, and I know Kyle does too, I feel like that's healthy for the automotive industry. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys out in Philly. I'll be sure to wear my Cowboys stuff while I'm out there, just for you, Paul.
Hey, look, I got something to show you. Check this out.
Look at this. If you can't see, it's an Eagles jersey with a SotoCon 22 on it. So
I love
that'll be a little Dallas.
I'll bring you
Philly.
one. I'll bring you one.
All right, I love it. I'll put it in the closet behind my wife's from Cincinnati. So
I'll use it to clean up the dog mess. Right? That's how that works. We'll talk to you soon, Jeff.
All right, take care, guys.
I'm always impressed, especially to today's standards, what it actually takes to achieve a measure of success. And that's the sense that I get from Jeff. I mean, he's had just a long breadth of experience, and it took all of that in sequence to get him to where he is today. And I really appreciate perspective like that in today's world, where it's like, oh no, you just do the thing and then you're going to be valued at $1 billion. Right. And how that kind of makes other entrepreneurs and other developers and people wanting to really do something. But when, I've got his LinkedIn up, and you see just the series of events and how that experience is compounding over the years, it's just always impressive. And I really appreciate that perspective.
It is one of the things with this podcast, we've been able to kind of see a lot of the steps that have happened that got the person to the seat that they're in today, which is by far one of the most enjoyable parts of doing these, because you really do need to understand the path that someone took to get where they are, to get the full context of not only what they're doing, but also, it's our desire to see a lot of, progressive dealers partner up with these progressive industry partners, and understanding how much they know, or like what the path was. It really does help in that kind of matchmaking process, because you kind of get a vibe and an energy. And Jeff definitely has, like, if I'm talking about creating content in automotive and thinking about it in a progressive and fun and relevant way, it's like his path actually paints to that. Even his lifestyle, even the ski bum part is a big and important part of that story.
One thing that I love about Jeff is he's a practitioner as well as like a product guy. So not just a past practitioner, but I brought up the story of him kind of doing hey, we've got to use our actual product, see how fast we can make something happen. And so it's just really cool to see, a lot of times, like, you see a CEO or co-founder, a founder really not continuing to stay in the weeds of their product and understanding how to use it and whether it actually works for someone that's in a dealership and trying to create content or push out social posts every single day. And for him, it's like, it's a thing that is it's necessary for him to understand his product, understand the way people are using it, so that he can connect the right end user to the product to be able to serve the customer. So we really think we thank you for listening to this episode of Auto Collabs. I'm stumbling over my words today. I don't know where they all ate. They all got swallowed down the back of my throat, but we had a ton of fun hanging out with Jeff Gonzales. So for myself, Kyle Mount Sierra, Michael Cirillo, Paul J. Daly, we will see you next time. Welcome to Auto Collapse. Why are we recording?